like I
we bring
said,
that one into stock?
I don't remember what I know I told maybe eyes, I think I told, yeah, I did, I'm pretty sure. That's what I recommended, so, and I would assume that Jeff, the way Jeff and I talked about it, was something that's gonna bring it. Come, like I said, the mounting bolts come too, 'cause it sits a little taller than the stock, there's a hardware kit for the international one, and the plug there, is cause the 7.3s only have a 3G plug coming out of the engine. This has a 6G plug on it, so you don't, again, you don't have to do any wiring changes, you don't have to splice wires, do any configuration. So, and I think these are a slow but steady seller, you know, you find one, you find another customer for them, you know, there's not a lot of this kind of stuff out there, so. And we're coming out with a application for the Ford, the Ford gas engines, the 5.4, the 4.6, the V10, and we're also gonna come out with one for the GM mount, for the Vortec engines and the Duramax engines. But those will be a few days away. J-mount bad one. Alright, dual alternators, dual internal fan alternators have been kind of evolving the last few years. And we've just recently got into it first with the T-mount and now with the standard J-mount and pad mount configurations. Pad mounting next. We do quite a bit, we used to do quite a bit, still do in the school bus market, and we're a standard position with Thomas Bus, which is Freightliner. Bluebird Bus, we were standard for years. Bosch came in with their 200 amp unit, and took the standard platform over from us for a while. We took it back with the pad mount unit, so Bluebird buses right now, the standard alternator going in them is the 240 amp version of this unit right here. And international bus, right now we're putting on our 4000 series unit, and we're working to get them on the dual internal fan units, okay? And some of the advantages, it's a smaller package. It's supposed to breathe better, because you have the dual fans, keeps the stator and the rotor cooler. I'm not exactly sold on it, but the thing you have to watch out for is, ours we specifically designed for these kind of applications. A school bus, you wanna, when you're speccing out a school bus, you want the thing to have, you have it off, you turn everything on, and whatever that output is there, that's what you want to cover at idle. Like I said, this will do 140 amps at idle, but that's like 100 and usually most school buses have 105, 110 amp base load, and that's a contrived maximum, that's on a, tomorrow, windshield wipers going, defroster full blast, heater full blast, lights, when they make that stop and all the lights come on, we make sure when we do our specifications, and we recommend, when people do their specifications, is that when that makes that stop and every light's on, that alternator's still covering all the loads of that vehicle. There's nothing coming out of the battery, it's all going forward. And that's what we work to do. But another good application for these is those local delivery trucks. Those straight trucks. He goes 10 minutes, stops, sits there for a half hour, runs the lift gate up and down. Because those guys, chances are they usually have a lot of starter issues, and they think it's because they're starting the vehicle up and down, off and on again a lot, because you can't let the thing idle anymore. But what's actually more than likely happening, and I've seen a lot happen, is the batteries are going down and down and down every stop, and every one of those restarts is a low voltage start. Low voltage starts are hard on the starter, hard on the battery. This alternator here, having 140 amps at idle, keeps the batteries up. Even if it's going down the road 5, 10, 15 minutes, it's got enough power to bring the batteries back up, so when you're doing the next, start and stop, there's batteries back there. So that's another good avenue for these. but I think you're gonna find a lot of good market for these in a school bus. And the 210 day mount, pad mount are what we have, what I've got for you in stock. Does anybody have any questions on this?
That 2 years for school buses that everything has, is that like an industry standard? Is that what that's about?
Yeah. There are some competitive products that are 3 year, really pricey. But it's standard for it's 2 year. We used to be standard 2 year school bus for every alternative that we sold. If you put it on a school bus, they had a 2 year warranty. And now it's alternators, all our alternators, 185 amps and up on approved applications. And the reason for that is a lot of times what can happen is a school district will spec school buses and say they want 5 with air conditioning. And they get 4 bids on it. And the lowest bid wins. But that lowest bid, say he's giving them Bluebird school buses. But he's not giving them Bluebird school buses with air conditioning from Bluebird. Buys that Bluebird bus, takes it over here, they upfit it, and then they bring it back. Well, 9 times out of 10, when they do that upfit, they don't change the alternator. So we had a lot of issues where we had a 185 amp alternator on a school bus, or 160 amp alternator on a school bus with dual air conditioners. You know, and if you go on our website or you start getting into more school bus stuff, you know, there's lots of stuff to talk about. But we have a chart that says, you know, standard school bus, 185 amps. 1 air conditioner, 200 amps. You know, and now the chart's gone up. It's 210 is the standard school bus, you know, down through. But dual AC is 270 amp. That's a minimum we recommend for a dual AC school bus. But we have a lot of failures when they put the wrong alternator on in that kind of situation. So that's why we put a little more stipulations on it, really. And this stuff is really this is from the flyer. Another nice feature about these alternators is they have remote sense. They're remote sense capable, and they have a lamp driver, which is just for an indicator light to the dash. They're all E-coated, you know, high temperature bearings, which we put in everything, in 12 diodes. But does everybody know what remote sense is?
No.
Alright. Standard alternator. Trying to find a picture. Okay. Standard alternator senses battery voltage at the B+, the hot wire coming in, and then it makes its voltage accordingly. And what it does is, you know, depending on how much your output is, it'll keep your voltage at, our set point on our regulators is 14 volts plus or minus 0.2 volts. Okay, so you want 14 volts. This senses how much power is at the battery and regulates the voltage accordingly. Well, what remote sense, in this battery cable, you know, your hot battery cable comes down here, goes to here, connects to something else, goes over to here, connects to something else. You know, maybe like 3 connections or 4 connections in there. Each connection you lose 1/10 of a volt, and depending on whatever else you have in there. So a remote sense is several posts, and like on this alternator here, it's this post right here, the second post, and I'll give you this, I'll give you these. But you hook a wire that goes directly onto that post, the remote sense post, to the battery. There's no connections in between. It's not like a current carrying wire, so it's not large. You know, all it does is go around all those other connections and senses battery voltage. So if there's 0.3 of a volt, 0.4 of a volt drop in that line, it will tell the regulator to go up. So instead of making 14 volts to get 14 to the battery, it makes 14.3 to get 14 to the battery. Okay? And that's used a lot on Freightliner applications where they use that remote sense. And then there's another reason for remote sense is on a battery isolator, like on an RV or something like that, where you have chassis batteries and house batteries, and they both go into a battery isolator, which separates them. The remote sense goes to the isolator so it can sense both sets of batteries, because a normal alternator would only sense one set, and once that set of batteries got charged, it would set back from charging, you know. And these will do that. So, and on this unit that I just gave you, and we'll talk about this, I think it's or maybe something, if not, I wanna talk about these two. But these, you don't have to do anything with that sense wire. If you hook something to it, it works. If you don't hook anything to it, it doesn't work. So, it's real easy.
You ought to call it voltage reference, is really, because that's really what it does. It's just referencing.
Right. Basically, it doesn't carry any current or nothing, it just tells the alternator what's going on. And just to be advised, I'm not a big fan of it on Class 8 trucks, only because what it can do is say it's designed for a 0.3 of a volt drop in a positive line, okay? Shouldn't have any more than half a volt drop in the whole thing. But what it can do is say, and cables, it may not be green at the end, it's green over here, or it's green down in here or somewhere. Well, anytime that happens, then you start getting more of a voltage drop in the line, so you go from half a volt to 0.6, 0.7. That alternator is just going to keep compensating for that voltage drop, and what it's doing is it's masking a cabling issue on the vehicle, until you have an alternator issue or something like that, and then you replace the alternator instead of, taking care of the cabling issue. So I always recommend when somebody's doing this and they have the remote sense to make sure they maintain, be very diligent about their connections. And that's really a good policy for any kind of electrical system. And that's power curves, we talked about those. Output at idle, a lot of times competitive, or anybody they'll post their maximum output. We also post what it is at a temperature, because you'll lose, like anything electrical, once it gets warm it loses output, loses efficiency. So like we're 140 amps at idle, but we're about 103 when it's hot, 125 C, which is your max. But we still outperform the competitors. Competitor B here is a self-protecting regulator, so when it gets to a certain temperature it will back off or shut down, so it can cool itself to come back up.
And who is competitor B? Bosch.
There you go. That's Bosch.
And A is Delco?
Yeah, Delco's are 28 SI. They've been doing pretty well with it. It's a pretty good unit. But ours is the only one that's made in the US too. But just to be aware of that can also mask battery issues that, that'll actually add to battery issues, and electrical components usually like to run at the current that they're designed for. So if it's designed for 8 amps, it likes that. Doesn't like 4, doesn't like 3. Some of the other features and benefits, and then there's an interchange chart here on some of the Delco parts, our part numbers, Bosch part numbers. Again, those are all on that flyer I gave to you. Okay, 444. Does anybody have any questions on the AVI? Okay.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it takes a half hour.
Yeah, no, you're just so good though.
Yeah. Okay, 110444, we talked about this a little bit. This is just a flyer that we have, and on the back it has some cross-reference information. Basically it's 150 amp, bare bones, self-excite. There's J180 and pad mount, okay? Couple nice features it has over the competition is it's got our sealed brushes. The regulator where it goes on here is sealed, so it keeps all the dirt and stuff from getting in the brush and slip ring area. That's really good on garbage trucks, dump trucks, high dirt environment. And it also has the rectifiers, the way they come around. Ours allows us to breathe a lot better than a competitive product. And ours is made in the USA, and with the new rectifier it's high temperature. Okay, so before a few years ago you have to worry about what year vehicle you were putting this on. Now you don't. It'll run good on all of them. And that's about it. our 110-555, and we talked about that, it's our, basically, you know, that's the one you're probably gonna sell the most of. You see that a lot at the, see that a lot at the dealers. You know, it's 160 amp, does a lot of things really well. You know, it can go in those applications where those old 2800s used to go into. It's now a 2-year warranty unit. Our price went up really minimal. Sorry, did I skip you on the other one too?
No, I got it.
Okay.
189.95?
Huh?
189.95.
Sure, that sounds like a good price. Yeah, they just do, it just does a lot of things well, you know, and now with the 2-year warranty, what we did was we increased the brush length and put new, we put heavier bearings in it, you know, to stand up to that kind of abuse, and it just for a base, bare bones kind of unit, does a really good job. Okay. I wanna go through this brushless real quick, and then I'm just gonna show you the website, okay? Our brushless unit, if you open this thing all the way up, look like this on the front. Okay, you'll see here on the first side, see all these Delco part numbers, OE and reman. There's 2 columns over here, and then all the way here you'll see 2 part numbers. BLD 2130 GH 160 amp, BLD 2333 GH. These 2 units can replace all these units here. Okay, our brushless units are new, no core. They have a 3-year 350 warranty, and they have 110 amps at idle. Okay, competitive brushless products have less. Like there's one that has 105, the other one has 100. I don't know how far away I was. Other has 100.
No.
Okay. But most of them, and inherently with brushless, and I could do a nice little chart on why brushless usually has less output at idle. But needless to say, we worked on that, and 110 amps at idle is really good for Class 8 applications. And then you'll see, so really all you have is your choices, 160 or 185 amp. And then if you flip over the other side, these are your pad mount configurations here. And the reason we call these universal is I'll go back to the front, and you'll see this regulator that we talked about earlier with the remote sense has 2 posts. It has a remote sense post, which is the one to the right.
On our left. That one there?
That one there.
That's on our left.
That's on your left, okay. Yeah, I'm not good with that stuff. Anyway, that's your remote sense post. And what these will do is, say you have a fleet that has internationals and they have Freightliners. Okay? Freightliners have remote sense, internationals don't. You sell them one of these pad mount units on the Freightliners, he hooks up the remote sense, unit operates as normal. On the international, he puts a jumper wire from the remote sense to the B+. Again, the unit operates as normal. Okay, so really, when you go out and you see, competitive Delco, competitive brushless products out on shelves, they may have like 3 different pad mounts, 3 different brush J mounts on a shelf. You can go in and say 160 or 185. J mount, pad mount, and then you're done. The other post is for an indicator light, a lamp driver, so that there's some vehicles that have those, so you can kind of go with it that way. But these are really nice, and they're competitively priced. 35 SI, 140 amp reman unit. It's a 2-year, 250,000 mile unit warranty, and our 160 amp new is competitively priced there. Okay, so. And depending on, again, you get some fleets, you need some help with that, please give me a call, stuff like that. Okay, and these have there's a lot of these out there on internationals. We run their Class 8 trucks for quite a while on these.
On the brushless?
Yes, sir. Not with this regulator.
Now, the international truck or the international bus or both?
International truck. Brushless you don't usually put on a bus, because even though this is a really good output at idle for a Class 8 application, it's not really good for a school bus application. because you have 185 amp with 110 amps at idle, and up here you have the 210 amp with 140 amps at idle. And brushless is better for over the road because once you take the brushes out of the unit, you've taken out the wearable item, so there's a lot more longevity. The AVI or the dual internal fan units have brushes, so for a Class 8 application, they're not as ideal.
Okay, now there's some international engines and transit buses. What would they have? The Orion,
Orion,
transit bus?
okay, I would have to,
You'd have to
it would
see.
probably be a 4000 series unit. Yeah, I'm sure it wouldn't be one of these, it'd probably be a J mount or a CAD mount. I would doubt they had any of the T mount of different units. We have like a Bosch T1, which is a screwy European mount. I'm gonna give you guys, I don't really wanna go to.
Are we gonna do anything with the what's it, the 240 and the 320 fire engine alternators?
I would, if you have somebody, I would, 270s and 320s are like,
270s, that's what mine is.
they're expensive.
Now, are they available only new?
Yes, yes,
No remand on that program at all?
no, rebate on it at all. They're good on promo,
Well, that's what all fire trucks have.
Right.
We've got at least the 270, and some guys are jumping up to 320.
right. Almost all that stuff is in our warehouse, so, if you order it today, you get it, you can have it tomorrow.
Okay.
I would find, and that's really not my decision on what you stock.
No, I understand that, but did you discuss that with Jeff on stock orders?
No, I would, that's something you have to get customers and stock. I would guess, I don't know.
Because I know that one of our competitors, Delco, has now come out with the 270 alternate.
Yeah, it's a 270,
In
40
around,
SI.
in around retail at about $1,500.
Yep. Yeah, ours would be a little cheaper. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I mean, we can be very competitive or below that. Again, it's more of a,
Well, I understand that, but like I said, it's just recently that I heard about the Delco 270.
yeah.
Within the last 6
They got a
months.
270 and they got a 300. And they have, they actually have a pretty impressive power curve. So, they're a really good unit actually,
Okay.
but, we've done some stuff with ours too.
Are we gonna stock any of these refrigeration alternators?
I'm glad you said it, 'cause I gave it to you and I forgot I was talking about it. What I wanna do is give you this flyer as a, if you see some business there, we can, do some quoting on it, We have a really good price on those. The units that are on this flyer, there's Carrier on the front, Thermo King on the back. These are units that we formerly sold to Carrier and Thermo King, it's first fit. Carrier and Thermo King have since supplied those applications with other alternators, so it allowed us to sell these to everybody. Okay, so if you get customers that want that, the prices are in the system, they're aggressive prices.
So originally, these were proprietary numbers?
Yes, sir. They were proprietary, we only sold the Carrier, we could not sell to you new. So we sold a reman version, but since, they've kicked us out, we sell a new unit there, and it's the same stuff that they were putting on. And the one that they're putting on now requires a little kit, and these don't.
If we were to order these, it's coming from New York State.
It's coming from, Florence, Kentucky. Yep, that's where our aftermarket distribution facility is. We have our manufacturing is in Arcade, New York, and then our aftermarket warehouse is in Florence, and that's a really long story. Because we used to be Presslight, we used to be Leece, Neville, we used to be Motorola. There was Cleveland, was Leece, Neville, Motorola was Arcade, and then there was Presslight in Toledo, Ohio, Decatur, Alabama, and Wagner, Oklahoma.
Sure.
And that all came to Florence, Kentucky was a real good middle point for that. And since we've closed and consolidated everything else into the Motorola plant for manufacturing, and having the warehouses there is just kind of the way it's stayed.
So if we were to special order it overnight, it would be, it cost shipping, of
Yeah, it'll cost shipping, of course, yeah. What I would do is, this is something you guys can talk about, see what your customers are using. There's usually, 3 or 4 of each one that's something that would be popular. And then quote it and then go from there. I mean, it's something you can stock, initial orders, I'll help out, more than helpful on, price to make sure that you're not getting hammered on that first set. And then one other thing I wanted to show you, just kind of an off, I don't even know if I I take it out? No, it didn't. You talked a little bit about coach transit. Bosch has a T1, I'll give you two for coach. Bosch has a T1 unit that goes on like coaches and older motorhomes and stuff like that. And we originally designed this unit to compete with them in Europe, in London. We used to have a UK, United Kingdom facility as well. This one we've since moved the manufacturing to China, but we have competitive products for the various applications you can see here on the back. And actually, I think we're going into a new OE application with these. They're brand new. We've made improvements over the Bosch T1 version, especially the sealed life bearings. They don't require lubrication. The other thing is they're quite a bit cheaper than the competitive products. And you can they're usually set up in dual systems on the buses. And say the guy, he doesn't have to change them both. If one fails and he wants to try one of ours, that can go right in there. And then it'll run with the Bosch regulator, it'll run with the other Bosch alternator. Delco also makes a reman version of this, it would run with that as well, okay? So that's probably a healthy products battery for now.